was to high-G, high-performance aircraft. That was the change in 2022 to enable them to pursue waivers to fly for those high-G and high-performance aircraft. And the idea was to increase readiness, because increasing readiness, having more opportunities for everyone to fly in those high-performance aircraft. What we did, we looked at the data from 2019 to 2022 and saw how many waivers were being pursued, how many waivers were being granted between that time, and then between 2022 and 2025, so 2 3-year periods, and saw no real difference in the amount of time being requested or given for those in high-performance aircraft. So because of that, there was no real increase in waivers from those 2 periods, and the risk was still there. It was an unknown risk that we just reverted to really closer to what the other services have been.
Welcome back, patriots, to Right View Nation, where we expose the truth, call out the hypocrisy, and stand firm for God, country, and common sense. If you're sick and tired of our military being turned into a social experiment instead of the strongest fighting force on earth, then this video is for you. So today, I want to talk about a Senate exchange that really rubbed me the wrong way. And I mean big time. We had a situation where the Air Force, our brave, proud, and unmatched Air Force, is trying to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to refueling capacity. We're talking tankers like the KC-46A, vital aircraft that keep our operations alive in the Indo-Pacific and the Arctic. But instead of focusing on the big picture, like China building bases in the South China Sea, or Russia doing flyovers in Alaska, what's the Senate grilling the Secretary of the Air Force about? Daycare. That's right. Military. Daycare. Look, I'm not saying child care isn't important, but when our nation's enemies are testing hypersonic missiles, we should be prioritizing refueling aircraft, satellite defense systems, cyber warfare capabilities, not how many babysitters are available on base. What happened to the warrior spirit? What happened to discipline, duty, and being ready at a moment's notice? This isn't Right View Nation, Daycare Edition. We're talking about the United States military. And if our leaders are more focused on managing playground waitlists than preparing for war, we're in serious trouble. And here's where the liberal meltdown hits peak hypocrisy.
Senator Murray and then Senator Bozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and yes, they do. Now, before I get to my questions, I do just want to say that I really appreciate the sacrifice of our service members and military families, and I know everyone on this dais feels the way, especially in the Air Force. As you know, Washington is home to the Fairchild Air Force Base, so we thank everyone. Mr. Secretary, as I'm sure you are aware, as a former KC-135 navigator yourself, our Air Force currently does not have the refueling capacity it needs to sustain operations in important strategic theaters. Fairchild Air Force Base in my home state of Washington is home to one of the Air Force's largest air refueling wings, and its proximity to the Arctic and the Indo-Pacific makes it a very key strategic launching point. Now, the existing KC-46A contract only has a few years remaining. When does the Air Force plan to award the next tanker production contract?
Senator, so I'll take for the record and exactly the date of when we when we're planning on awarding. But it is definitely a focus of ours. We agree we have to maintain and continue to build out the tanker fleet to maintain that capability, as just demonstrated over the weekend. It's a critical part of our architecture.
And you can't even give me an approximate within a year, within a month, within days, within?
I would have to yield to the acquisition folks to figure out when that decision is going to be made. We understand that we're on the cusp of the end of the contract, existing contract 183 for the current KC-46. That evaluation is undergoing. I would say within months we'll be able to understand when that date would be, the exact date.
Okay. All right. And what remains to be done to address the remaining Category 1 deficiencies in the KC-46A contract?
Yes, Senator, they're working very hard. They're drawing those down to a few. Obviously, we still have a couple with the remote visualization system. The 2.0 version of that should be completed. That's really the long pole in the tent for all of them. That should be done by the fourth quarter of 27. We also have a crimped sort of drain valve issue that's being worked. We also have one where they call it the stuck boom, where it can only refuel. There's one aircraft that can't refuel, and that's the A-10. But largely, those are they'd keep it from being full capability, but they're just refueling just about everything, including several of the capabilities that happened last weekend. So it's
Right.
still a capable aircraft. We need to keep working.
Okay, and if you could just stay in touch with my office as you get closer on those details. Let me switch topics, because over the past few years, policies to help recruit staff for child development centers on military bases have led to lower wait times, especially in the Air Force. In fact, in 2024, the Air Force wait list dropped below 3,000 children, done by we worked really hard to get it there, and that was the lowest since the Air Force began tracking it back in 2018. But after Trump's hiring freeze on civilian employees at DoD, several Air Force bases have been forced to reduce their child care services, and the child care wait list has now ballooned to over 4,000 kids. That is really unacceptable to me. That would leave our military families and parents who are putting their lives on the line for our country really scrambling to find child care. And in many places, CDCs are the only real option for child care. So, Mr. Secretary, what is the Air Force doing to make up for the CDC staff shortages?
We are very aware of the issue, Senator, and it is a priority for us to fix, and we are looking at that. Talked about it just yesterday with the team. I think there is a plan to start addressing the shortfall in staffing. I know, General Alvin, you have any more details on it?
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Senator, what I would add to that is, your point is exactly right. When we work very hard, and we got the critical caregivers
Yep.
at the level. During this initial deferred resignation program, we kept all the providers. They were not authorized to go, but some of the back staff, the support staff, was authorized to go. And so because of that, we had to close a couple classrooms here and there and reduce that. I believe that is going to be faster to rehire than it would be to get the care provider. So I think that's where.
If you can stay in touch with my office on how you're progressing on that, what you're doing, I would appreciate
Senator, we'll
it.
do that.
And finally, I want to ask, because over the past few months, we've seen the Trump administration start to systematically dismantle DOD's ability to welcome all who wish to serve, and I am particularly concerned about attacks on women service members, from healthcare to firing senior leadership. And in April, the Air Force suddenly reversed its policy allowing women aircrew members to fly during early stages of pregnancy. That policy, aligned with FAA pregnancy guidelines, was widely applauded when it was made in 2022, and then the Trump administration eliminated it without any explanation. That reversal really forces women to choose between advancing their careers and starting their families, and it drastically reduces women's opportunities to develop expertise in really highly technical roles for our Air Force. I want to ask, what data supported the Trump administration decision to prohibit women from flying in non-combat environments during early stages?
Well, thank you, Senator. And that was an Air Force policy change. So that would be on us in the Air Force. And the difference is that even though you talk about the alignment with FAA, the change was to high-G, high-performance aircraft. That was the change in 2022 to enable them to pursue waivers to fly for those high-G and high-performance aircraft. And the idea was to increase readiness, because increasing readiness, having more opportunities for everyone to fly in those high-performance aircraft. What we did, we looked at the data from 2019 to 2022 and saw how many waivers were being pursued, how many waivers were being granted between that time, and then between 2022 and 2025, so 2 3-year periods, and saw no real difference in the amount of time being requested or given for those in high-performance aircraft. So because of that, there was no real increase in waivers from those 2 periods, and the risk was still there. It was an unknown risk that we just reverted to really closer to what the other services have been.
Well, that's not the same as the FAA guidelines. And
Right.
Were there any specific cases or incidences that raised this medical concerns?
It was just the lack of increased readiness without the ability to fully understand the risk. And that
Well-
was not FAA, that was for the high-G, high-performing aircraft for which the FAA does not really have those guidelines
Well,
specific to.
I just have to say that, what's a woman supposed to do? Do a pregnancy test before she takes a flight? I mean,
No, Senator, and we can give you the full paper. This is not just totally restrictive. It's more aligned with the other services as well.
Well,
So-
I have looked at the policy, and I am concerned. I haven't seen the data. You have some, give it to me. If there's specific examples, give it to me. But I do not think that we should discriminate against women service members, and I would really ask you to consider reversing this.
Senator, we'll provide you all the data behind it.
Thank you.
The senator, like so many on the left, took the opportunity to bash President Trump for supposedly dismantling the Department of Defense's ability to welcome all who wish to serve. Oh, give me a break. President Trump wasn't dismantling the DoD. He was cutting the woke fat. He was restoring strength, focus, and clarity. He made it clear, the military's job is to win wars, not to babysit, not to play gender politics, and definitely not to rewrite biology in the name of inclusivity. Let me ask you this, patriots. How does firing unnecessary bureaucrats and ending reckless social experiments dismantle our military? It doesn't. It makes it stronger. The real dismantling is happening now under weak leadership, where DI, pronouns, and pregnancy policies are taking priority over strategy, readiness, and grit. Now let's get to the most ridiculous part of this hearing. The senator accused the Air Force of being discriminatory against women because they reversed a policy that allowed pregnant aircrew members to fly high-performance aircraft in early pregnancy. Let that sink in. You've got aircraft pulling multiple GS, executing precision maneuvers, and we're arguing over whether it's inclusive enough to let pregnant pilots fly them? Folks, this isn't an Uber ride. We're talking about combat aviation. Even the FAA doesn't have clear guidelines on this for high-G aircraft. Why? Because it's common sense. There are unknown medical risks involved, both to the mother and the unborn child. The Air Force actually looked at the waiver data and saw no real benefit to the old policy in terms of readiness. So they tightened the standard, aligned it with other branches, and now they're being accused of sexism? Please, that's not discrimination. That's responsibility. But of course, the senator doesn't want logic. She wants symbolism. She wants headlines. She wants to posture for her woke base who think that biology is optional and that war fighting is a social experiment. Let me be absolutely clear, patriots. This entire hearing was a microcosm of what's gone wrong with our national defense under leftist influence. Instead of funding fighter jets, we're funding woke indoctrination. Instead of tracking enemy movement, we're tracking gender equity. Instead of protecting the homeland, we're playing politics with pregnancy tests. It's madness. And it's dangerous. This is why we support President Trump. This is why we fight for America first. Because when the left is done, there won't be a military left to defend it all. Just a neutered, demoralized, overregulated shell of what once kept this nation safe. So here's what you do next. Like this video. Share it with every single patriot you know. Subscribe to Right View Nation so we can keep calling out this insanity. Let's bring honor back to our military. Let's defend common sense. And let's never apologize for putting American strength first. God bless our troops, God bless our veterans, and God bless the United States of America.